Mays imparted to his students and throughout his writings that the American heritage of the Negro was a religious heritage. Christianity in the life of black people was paradoxical. The paradox of American Christianity, he wrote, where some people who called themselves Christians believed in slavery and some sought to justify it on Christian grounds. Others sought to have it abolished on the basis of Christian principles. The same could be said of segregation. There are people who say that they are Christians who would give anything to perpetuate segregated economy, and there are other so-called Christians who would give much to have it abolished. The Christian religion as it has functioned in America has been both the friend and the foe of the Negro. Despite the paradoxes and the feebleness with which it is practiced in the American social order, it is potentially, and at times actually, the most powerful weapon a minority group has to press its just claims for equal opportunities for survival. End of quote. Mays worried that black Americans' life was increasingly growing secular and critical of Christianity. He hoped by training well-educated students and black clergymen, he would answer the worrisome challenge of secular culture that he saw growing within black communities in the United States after the First World War. He felt that the Negro church had to adapt to its new milieu and answer the changing society with the ethics of Christ and social action. He concluded that a cadre of leaders would be needed to inform and help the masses fight against social oppression and give them an unshakable Christian and ethical foundation. So in 1940, when Mays was called to be Morehouse College president, he took his vision for the Negro clergy and reshaped it once again to be the foundation for Morehouse men. And if you ever have been to Morehouse College, and I'm not a graduate of Morehouse College, but you know, there's a saying, you can always tell a Morehouse man, but you can't tell him much. And that's the thing that Mays put in his students. He wanted them to think of themselves as being the baddest bunch on the block. Morehouse College was founded in 1867, just after the American Civil War, by white Northern Baptists and black Baptists of Georgia. It was named after his greatest benefactor, Henry Morehouse, in 1913. During Mays' 27-year tenure, he tried to develop the college on the basis of its Protestant principles, what he often called prophetic. He noted, at Morehouse, I tried to develop an academic community that was supra-cultural, supra-race, supra-religion, and supra-nation. I tried to build the college because I believed then, as I do now, that unless we succeed in building this same kind of world, mankind's existence on earth is indeed precarious. Something you need to tell the legislature tomorrow, Chancellor. Not only was Mays a successful college president, but he was also an active and great churchman and a student of the New Testament, having received an MA in 1925 and a PhD in theology, both from the University of Chicago in 1935. Mays was an ordained Baptist clergyman actively serving the National Baptist Convention. He worked in the International YMCA movement, served as the president of the Federal Council of Churches, which is called the National Council of Churches of Christ, and preached in many of the largest Afro-Baptist congregations throughout the United States. His countless links with ordinary African-American Christians is extraordinary because he helped spread the word about civil rights through preaching. Not only that, he kept a staggering schedule of church-related activities, along with administrative duties as the president of the college, and he wrote a weekly column in the Pittsburgh Courier for 27 years. Even in his retirement, Mays continued to be concerned with education, successfully running for the Atlanta School Board in 1970 and serving as its president of the board until 1981. So my research then seeks to answer a number of questions regarding this man, right? As an educator. How did he understand his religious belief? How did his religious faith define for him the civil rights struggle? What affected secularization and the professionalization of the American society and the academy have on his work towards eradicating Jim Crow and fully democratizing the United States? For example, while Mays as an individual remained a Christian believer, many of his contemporaries, such as E. Franklin Frazier, turned towards sociology and Marxism to redress the issues of black life in the United States. Frazier and other intellectuals of his day were highly critical of black Americans' Christianity and the black clergy. And although Mays shared many of their criticism, why did he continue to put faith in the ability of the church to be a redeeming force in African American culture and life despite its documented social deficits? What conflicts resulted from Mays' approach to educating African American students? What successes and failures resulted from Mays' work in this area? What understanding can be gained from how he implemented his plan to educate and equip African American clergy in an era of Jim Crow? Despite great handicaps in funding and resources for his schools, Mays motivated his students and many others to excel using his great oratorical skills. What can be learned from his talks about religion and the intellectual trajectory of the movement? Another pertinent question: Mays corresponded with his fellow colleagues throughout the South who served as presidents and administrators of historically black colleges, many of whom were clergymen. What do these correspondence reflect about Mays' thoughts on faith, democracy, and civil rights throughout the 40s and the 50s? Another research inquiry I'm seeking to answer: Mays was a keen observer and responded on issues of segregation and desegregation. What was his views about the morality of segregation and integration? And finally, the institution of the worldwide church, such as the World Council of Churches and the YMCA, were forums for Mays to observe and speak out on social conditions globally, from South Africa to India. What do these forums tell us about his visions and the democratizing spirits of the civil rights movement, the Cold War era, and the freedom struggle and the developing of new nation states? Finally, following Mays' career makes it obligatory to inquire into the gendered dimensions of black American religiosity. Mays' occupation as the president of an all-men's college and an educational leader within the black church, where men overwhelmingly dominated the formal role of the clergy, raises important questions about how his ideas supported and diverged from the prevailing notions about masculinity among black men within the realms of religion and civil society. The goal of my study is to raise the status of Mays and put him back into the literature of American religious, intellectual, and civil rights history as an important public theologian and educator central to the shaping of key institutions in the African American community. In various historiographies, Mays' name is to be found in numerous footnotes and indexes. Yet, very few historians have ever bothered to plow through his huge bodies of writings, correspondence, and papers and make him the subject of a study in his own right. Mays appears in the literature as an interesting appendage to the people he helped nurture as a college president, or to the organizations he participated in, such as the Federal Council of Churches, the Southern Regional Council, and the Southern Council for Human Welfare. But Mays was a public theologian who advanced a theology that attempted to dislodge white supremacy in order to further extend democracy and its benefits to all people.